Not long after that, and I find myself in yet another bind, thanks to yet another attack. This one was the worst yet. A team and I are sealed deep in the complex's inner workings, buying time and praying for our lives. Status report? I rasp into the comm, though I already know it's dead. 48 hours trapped in the maintenance tunnels beneath Platform D, and still no rescue. Scotch is stable, Parker responds, her voice hoarse from the thin air. She's got her helmet off again. We all do, conserving what little oxygen remains in our suit supplies. But he won't be running any marathons soon. Didn't plan to anyway, Scotch mumbles from his position against the frozen wall. The emergency patch on his suit is holding, but the cold has turned his wounded side into one massive bruise. Too damn cold for running. The maintenance tunnels weren't designed for long-term occupation. They're narrow, cramped, and poorly insulated. But after the massive attack that separated us from the main facility, they're all we've got. At least the mining equipment is still running above us. The vibrations tell us that much. Movement, Zhang whispers from his position near the junction. He's our only surviving rookie from the second wave of reinforcements that arrived last week. Big ones. They're searching the upper tunnels again. We hold our breath, listening to the heavy footsteps above. The creatures have been systematically searching for us ever since they cut us off. They're getting smarter, more thorough. It's not just about attacking anymore, they're hunting. Save your ammunition, I remind everyone, though they already know. We're down to our last few magazines each. They can't search forever. Want to bet? Scott tries to laugh, but ends up coughing instead. The sound echoes in the tunnel, and we all freeze. What? The footsteps above. Pause. Nobody move, I breathe. Minutes crawl by like hours. The temperature in the tunnel has dropped another few degrees. Our suit diagnostics gave up trying to measure it precisely a day ago. Ice crystals form in the air with each exhaled breath, creating tiny clouds that sparkle in our dimmed helmet lights. What deep thoughts they are, we never get beyond the concept. Finally, the footsteps move on. They're learning our patterns, Parker observes, her face pale from cold and exhaustion. They know we have to stay near the machinery for warmth. She's right. The mining equipment generates just enough heat to keep the tunnels above lethal temperatures. Barely. We've already lost feeling in most of our extremities. Remember basic training, Zhang asks suddenly, when they told us trephined Marines were the best of the best? We're the best, Scotch mumbles. That's why they sent us to this frozen hellhole. Someone's got to keep the uranium flowing. Speaking of flowing, I cut in. Status check on water recyclers. Everyone checks their suit systems. The news isn't good. Another 12 hours at most before dehydration becomes a serious problem. We can eat ice to survive longer, but that'll just speed up hypothermia. Tell me a story, Scotch says suddenly. Something to keep my mind off the cold. Once upon a time, Parker starts, her voice dripping with sarcasm. A bunch of idiots signed up to be Trephin Marines because they thought it would be glamorous. We share a quiet laugh at that. Even Zhang cracks a smile. Haha. Remember Armstrong? I ask, thinking back to my first month here. My first rookie casualty. Took his helmet off mid-fight because he thought he saw something beautiful in the ice. We all see it eventually, Scotch says softly. That's why we take the helmet breaks. Something about this place gets in your head, makes you want to look at it with your own eyes, no matter how stupid that is. A new sound interrupts our reminiscing, the deep, resonant crack of ice shifting. But this is different from the usual noises. This is closer. They're in the lower tunnels, Zhang reports, his voice steady despite the fear. Must have finally figured out the maintenance access points. Options? Parker asks, already checking her weapon. I consider our situation. We're trapped between the upper and lower search parties. Our ammo is low, our suits are failing, and Scotch can barely move. The mining equipment drones on above us, oblivious to our predicament. We hold position, I decide. They want us to run, to waste energy and make mistakes. We hold here, where we at least have some cover and a heat source. No one argues. We've all been on Frost 7 long enough to know that panic equals death. Hours pass. The sounds below us grow closer. The ones above return more frequently now. They're tightening the net. Garcia, Scart says quietly. If they get me, don't let me become one of them. Been that way. She zips up the scarf. 50 years we finish together. We'll be that way 50 more. Nobody's becoming anything, I tell him firmly. We hold position, we stay alive, we wait for rescue. And if rescue doesn't come? Zhang asks. Parker answers before I can. Then we make enough noise on our way out to be worth remembering. The first creature bursts through the ice wall so fast we almost miss it. Almost. 4 rifles bark in unison, the sound deafening in the confined space. The thing shatters like frozen glass, its crystalline flesh exploding into deadly shards. Here they come, I announce unnecessarily as more shapes appear in the breach. Make every shot count. The battle becomes a blur of muzzle flashes and freezing flesh. The creatures pour in from both directions now, but the narrow tunnel works in our favor, forcing them to come at us 1 or 2 at a time. Scott props himself up, firing one-handed. Just like that time on Platform C, he shouts over the gunfire. You got us in trouble then too, I remind him, dropping another hostile. Less talking, Parker snaps. More shooting. Zhang is the first to run dry, switching to his combat knife without hesitation. Parker's rifle clicks empty a minute later, then scotches. I fire my last round into a particularly large specimen, watching it explode into frozen shards. Well, Scotch says, drawing his own knife, this is going to suck. That's when we hear it, the beautiful sound of cutting torches above us. In here, I shout as loudly as I can. 4 survivors in the maintenance tunnel. The rescue takes another hour. By then we've lost Zhang. He died holding off 3 of them with just a combat knife, buying time for the rescue team to cut through. The rest of us are hypothermic, dehydrated, and half dead. But we're alive. You look like hell, Rivera says as they pull us out. All of you. You should see the other guys, Scotch manages through chattering teeth. Later in medical, Walsh stops by our beds. Good work staying alive down there. The mining operations never stopped, even with all that damage. Corporate's pleased. Corporate's always pleased as long as the uranium flows, Parker mutters, but not loud enough for Walsh to hear. I look at my surviving squad members. Scotch, cracking jokes despite his injuries. Parker, already planning our next patrol route. We've lost good people. Zhang's empty bed speaks volumes. But we're still here, still holding the line. Outside, the darkness holds its secrets, and the ice keeps its mysteries. The creatures are getting smarter, more organized, but so are we. Adaptation goes both ways on Frost 7. Get some rest, I tell my team. Tomorrow we start again, because that's been that way 50 years, they finish with me. We'll be that way 50 more. But as I drift off to sleep, I can't help but wonder, which will last longer, us or the endless ice we guard? Then I remember the first rule of Frost 7 and let the question freeze with all the others. Corporate's coming. Rivera drops this bomb during our morning briefing, her helmet off despite the warning klaxons of an approaching storm. The announcement hits the room like a physical force, silencing even the usual dark humor. Full inspection, Walsh elaborates, his face grim. They want to evaluate our operational efficiency after the losses from last month's coordinated attacks. Last month. Has it really only been a month since we lost Zhang and 3 other squads? Since the creatures showed us just how intelligent they've become? Time moves differently on Frost 7, marked only by shift changes and attack patterns. Garcia, Scotch, Walsh continues. Your squad will handle Platform B during the inspection. Corporate likes that one. It's got the best production numbers. Lucky us, Scotch mutters. His side still bothers him in the cold, but he's back on full duty. You adapt, or you die on Frost 7. They think they'll bring coffee? Real coffee? Focus, I tell him, but I'm smiling behind my faceplate. Parker, what's the status on the new defense turrets? Online but untested, she responds, checking data on her HUD. Engineering says they should handle the cold better than the old models. Of course, they said that about the last batch too. The mining equipment beneath our feet thrums with its usual intensity, pumping uranium from the planet's core. At least that part of the operation is still running smoothly. The creatures seem to have pulled back since their big push, which makes everyone nervous. They never retreat without a reason. Movement on the perimeter, the sensor operator announces. Standard patrol pattern. They're staying just outside turret range. They're learning, Parker observes. Testing our responses, watching our patterns. Above your pay grade, Marine, Walsh reminds her, but there's no real heat in it. We've all noticed the changes in their behavior. We just don't talk about it. First rule of Frost 7. The corporate shuttle arrives 6 hours later, cutting through the eternal darkness like a falling star. It lands on Platform A, disgorging a group of figures in pristine environmental suits that have clearly never seen combat. Remember, Rivera briefs us, they want to see efficiency, not heroics. Standard responses only, no helmet breaks during their inspection. Madam? Scotch asks, with mock innocence. Should we tell them about the time Garcia collapsed the mining platform to stop an attack? Only if you want to spend the next month on latrine duty, I warn him. The inspection starts with the usual bureaucratic nonsense. Production reports, efficiency metrics, casualty statistics. The corporate types move through our facility like they're touring a factory, not a frontline position, in an endless war. That's when the proximity alarms start screaming. Multiple contacts, the sensor operator shouts. They're coming in fast, bigger signatures than usual. Of course they pick now to attack, Rivera sighs. All units, combat positions, try not to die in front of the shareholders. The creatures hit us from 3 directions, just like last time, but something's different. They're larger, more heavily armored with ice. The new defense turrets barely scratch them. Garcia, Walsh barks over the comm. Get those corporate suits to the secure bunker. Scotch, Parker, hold that line. I move to escort our visitors, but they're already rushing toward Platform B, exactly where the largest concentration of hostiles is gathering. No, wait, I shout. That area's not secure. Too late. The creatures breach the outer wall just as the corporate team reaches the platform. I've never seen them move this fast, this purposefully, like they knew exactly when to hit us. Protect that platform, Walsh orders. We lose those suits, we lose our funding. My squad moves as one, falling into the familiar rhythm of combat. Scotch takes high ground with his rifle, picking off the larger threats. Parker works crowd control with precise bursts. I push forward, trying to reach the corporate team before the creatures do. The suits are panicking, of course. They've never seen the creatures up close, never understood what we're really fighting out here. One of them has already removed his helmet, gasping in the thin air as terror overwhelms his training. Keep that seal, I yell, but it's too late. The cold takes him first, then the creatures take what's left. Garcia, status, Rivera demands. 4 corporate suits still alive, I report, dropping 2 runners with quick bursts, trying to reach the security doors but we're cut off. Hold position, Walsh commands. Relief team is inbound. Corporate protection is priority 1. Scotch's laugh crackles through the comm. Since when are suits more important than uranium? Since they sign our paychecks, Parker reminds him, taking down a particularly large hostile that was trying to flank us. The battle stretches on. The creatures seem endless, pouring through the breach like a frozen tide. We lose another suit to the cold, and a third to a lucky strike that cracks his faceplate. The remaining two finally start following orders, staying close and keeping sealed. Running low on ammo, Scotch reports. These new ones don't go down easy. He's right. Their ice armor absorbs our standard rounds like they're nothing. We have to hit the same spot multiple times to cause any damage. Fall back to secondary positions, Walsh orders. Platform B is lost. Repeat, Platform B is lost. The corporate suits don't take that well. One of them starts yelling about production quotas and shareholder value. The other just stares through his faceplate at the endless horde of creatures, finally understanding what we face every day. Welcome to Frost 7, Parker tells them as we retreat, where the uranium flows and the questions don't. Hours later, after we've sealed the breach and counted our losses, Walsh calls us all together. The surviving corporate suits stand off to one side, their pristine suits now stained with ice and worse. Production will resume within 24 hours, Walsh announces. Corporate has approved emergency funding for platform repairs and increased defenses. They finally understand what we're dealing with, Scotch asks. The senior suit steps forward, his face pale but composed. We understand that this facility is essential to humanity's energy needs. The uranium must flow regardless of cost. Been that way 50 years, Rivera says quietly. Will be that way 50 more, the suit finishes, surprising us all. We'll have new defense turrets and reinforced barriers shipped in by the end of the month. Until then, hold the line. They leave an hour later, their shuttle vanishing into the darkness. We watch it go from our posts, helmets off despite regulations. The cold helps us remember what's real. Think they'll actually send us better equipment? Parker asks. Does it matter? I respond. We'll hold either way. It's what we do. The mining equipment rumbles beneath our feet, already back to full operation. The creatures gather at the edge of our floodlights, testing our new defensive positions. Tomorrow we'll start rebuilding Platform B. The uranium must flow. Just another day in paradise, Scotch quips, lighting one of Rivera's precious cigarettes. We laugh because it's better than screaming, because that's what you do on Frost 7. You laugh, you fight, you hold the line. And you don't ask questions. Been that way 50 years, will be that way 50 more. New equipment's here, Scotch announces, his voice flat despite what should be good news. Want to bet how long it lasts this time? We're watching the supply shuttle land through the reinforced windows of Platform A. The corporate inspection last month has at least produced tangible results. 3 shipments of upgraded defense systems in as many weeks. Not that it matters much. The creatures adapt faster than our technology can keep up. 5 days, Parker bets, her helmet off as usual during quiet moments. The last batch made it 4. 2 days, Rivera counters, joining us at the window. They're getting better at breaking our toys. I keep my prediction to myself, watching the loading crews scramble to unload the shuttle before the next attack. They've gotten more efficient at it. They have to be. The creatures always seem to know when we're most vulnerable. Garcia? Walsh's voice crackles through my comm. Your squad's up for testing the new turrets. Try not to break these ones too quickly. No promises, sir, I respond. They started it. The new turrets are impressive, I'll give corporate that. Bigger barrels, better cold weather servos, supposedly improved targeting systems. The engineers are practically giddy as they explain the upgrades. These babies can track multiple targets simultaneously, one of them boasts, patting the turret's housing. And the new ammunition is designed specifically for... The proximity alarm cuts him off. Multiple contacts, the sensor operator announces. Big ones, coming in fast. Sir, of course they are, Scotch sighs, checking his weapon. Can't let us enjoy the new toys for even an hour. All units, combat positions, Walsh orders. Let's see what these new turrets can do. The creatures emerge from the darkness like always, but there's something different about them. Their ice armor is thicker, more structured, almost like they've been practicing. Hold your fire, I command my squad. Let the turrets get first crack at them. The new weapons roar to life, their improved targeting systems tracking the approaching horde with mechanical precision. The first volley tears into the creature's ranks, shattering ice and flesh with devastating effect. For about 30 seconds, they're adapting, Parker shouts. Look at their formation. She's right. The creatures are moving differently, using the larger ones as mobile cover, letting their ice armor absorb the turret's fire. They've never shown this level of tactical coordination before. So much for 5 days, Scotch quips, opening fire as they reach our perimeter. Think corporate will warranty these? The battle falls into its familiar rhythm, but with a desperate edge. The creatures press forward with unprecedented determination, sacrificing dozens of their own to advance a few meters at a time. Platform C is breached, someone shouts over the general comm. They're inside the facility. Garcia, take your squad and secure that breach, Walsh orders. Rivera, maintain perimeter defense. Everyone else, fall back to secondary positions. We move through the facility's corridors at combat pace, passing frightened mining crews being evacuated to the secure bunkers. The drills never stop, though. Uranium production continues even during the worst attacks. Contact front, Parker calls out, just as we round the corner to Platform C. The creatures have evolved again. The ones inside the facility are smaller, faster, adapted for enclosed spaces. Their ice armor is sleeker, and they move with an almost liquid grace. I really hate it when they learn new tricks, Scotch mutters, dropping 2 of them with precise bursts. Less complaining, more shooting, I remind him, pushing forward toward the breach. That's when we see it. They're not just attacking randomly. They're targeting specific systems, ripping out power conduits and communication lines with horrible precision. They're isolating us, Parker realizes, cutting us off section by section. She's right. Platform C's main systems are already dark, and the backup generators are failing. The creatures have learned our infrastructure, learned how to hurt us most effectively. Fall back to the security doors, I order. We need to contain this, but the security doors aren't responding. The creatures have already destroyed the control systems. We're trapped in Platform C with them, watching as they methodically destroy everything we've built. Anyone else missing the good old days? Scotch asks, reloading his last magazine. When they just tried to kill us instead of outsmarting us? Shut up and help me with this, Parker snaps, trying to manually override a door control. The override works, but not how we expected. Emergency bulkheads slam down throughout the platform, dividing it into containment sections. Standard protocol for catastrophic breaches. Well, I say into the sudden quiet of our sealed section, this is familiar. At least we're not in the maintenance tunnels this time, Scotch offers. The creatures test the bulkheads, their claws leaving deep scratches in the reinforced metal, but they don't press the attack. Instead, they just wait. They're learning patience, too, Parker observes. That's not terrifying at all. Hours pass. The emergency lights flicker as backup power systems fail one by one. The mining equipment below us groans as it automatically shifts to minimal operation mode. We can hear the creatures moving through other sections of the platform, but they leave us alone in our little pocket of safety. They're hurting us, I realize suddenly, containing us while they disable the facility piece by piece. Not bad for mindless monsters, Scotch says. Think they'll accept our surrender? You really want to find out what they do with prisoners? Parker asks. The answer comes through our emergency comm channel, Walsh's voice distorted by clear enough. All units fall back to Central Command. Repeat, all units fall back. We are initiating Protocol 0. Protocol 0, the nuclear option. Overloading the reactor cores to deny the facility to the enemy. It's been theoretically possible for 50 years, but no one ever thought we'd have to use it. Copy that, I respond. Just one problem, sir. We're sealed in Platform C with no way out. Working on that, Rivera's voice cuts in. Just try not to die before we reach you. The rescue, when it comes, is appropriately explosive. Rivera's team cuts through the bulkheads with mining charges, creating an escape route back to Central Command. Miss us? She asks as we run through the breach. Like a frozen hole in the head, Scotch replies. The facility is in chaos. Half the platforms are dark, their systems destroyed by the creature's methodical attack. The other half are barely holding on, their defenses strained to breaking point. All personnel prepare for emergency evacuation, Walsh announces over the general comm. This is not a drill. Repeat, this is not a drill. Later, in Central Command, we watch as the evacuation ships arrive. Mining crews and support staff are loaded first, then non-essential combat personnel. Through it all, the creatures just watch, content to let us run. They're learning, Parker says quietly. Learning and adapting. How long before they follow us to the next facility, the next world? Above our pay grade, Rivera reminds her, but her voice lacks conviction. I look out at the darkness beyond our walls, at the shapes moving just beyond the floodlights. They've won this round, forced us to abandon 50 years of mining and fighting and dying. But humanity needs its uranium, and there are other sites, other facilities. Been that way 50 years, Scotch says, lighting his last cigarette. They'll be that way 50 more, we all finish, but the words ring hollow now. The creatures watch us leave, their ice-blue forms motionless in the eternal night. They've learned patience, learned strategy, learned to think. I wonder what else they'll learn in the next 50 years. But that's against the first rule of Frost 7, so I keep the question to myself and board the evacuation ship. The uranium must flow, even if we have to find it somewhere else. Just another day in the cores. The evacuation order was a lie. 3 hours after non-essential personnel cleared out, Walsh called all remaining combat units to the command center. His face was grim behind his faceplate as he delivered the real orders from corporate. We're to hold the main reactor section at all costs, he announced. The uranium must flow. That was 6 hours ago. Now my squad is dug in around Reactor Complex 2, listening to the sounds of combat echo through the dying facility. Half our platforms are dark, systems methodically destroyed by the creature's organized attacks. But the reactors keep humming, keep processing the precious uranium that humanity apparently can't live without. Contact, North Corridor, Parker reports calmly. She's got her helmet off like most of us do now. If we're going to die here, we want to see it coming with our own eyes. Let them come, Scotch responds from his elevated position. His wounds from last month are fully healed, just in time for what might be our last stand. Getting tired of waiting. The creatures emerge from the darkness with that liquid grace they've developed. Their ice armor gleams under the emergency lighting, reflecting our own grim faces back at us. They've learned to use our floodlights against us, learned to move in ways that confuse our targeting systems. Focus fire on the big ones, I order, though my squad hardly needs the reminder anymore. Don't let them establish a foothold. The battle flows like frozen molasses. The creatures probe our defenses methodically, testing each section before committing to an attack. They've learned patience, learned strategy. Sometimes I catch myself admiring their evolution before remembering what they do to the people they take. Running low on ammo, Parker announces after another wave breaks against our position. Maybe 20 minutes of sustained fire left. 10 minutes here, Scotch adds. Should have packed more bullets, Rivera. I call over the comm. What's your status? Static answers me. Her squad was defending Reactor 1 last we heard. The silence from that section speaks volumes. Garcia, Walsh's voice crackles through the interference. Status report. Holding Reactor 2, I respond. Barely. Lost contact with Rivera's squad. Ammunition critical. Understood. His voice is steady despite the sounds of combat in the background. Corporate's sending a relief force. We just have to hold until they arrive. Scotch laughs, a harsh sound in the thin air. They said that on Frost 2 as well, and Frost 3, and Frost 4. He's right. We've all heard the stories. Each facility lost the same way, overwhelmed by creatures that keep getting smarter, keep adapting faster than we can. But the uranium must flow. Multiple contacts. Parker's warning snaps me back to the present. They're rushing all sectors. The creatures hit us like a frozen tidal wave. Their coordination is perfect. Each group supporting the others, using their specialized forms to maximum effect. The smaller, faster ones dart in to destroy vital systems, while the larger ones absorb our fire. Fall back to the reactor core, I order as our outer defenses crumble. Maintain containment protocols. We retreat, step by step, making them pay for every meter. Scotch runs dry first, switching to his sidearm without missing a beat. Parker's rifle clicks empty a minute later. My own ammo counter flashes red. Ideas? Scotch asks as we back into the reactor control room. Preferably ones that don't end with us becoming ice sculptures. I look around at the reactor controls, at the massive power readings on the displays. The uranium processing never stops, not even during an attack. The facilities are designed that way, automated systems that keep running no matter what. Garcia? Walsh's voice cuts through the static. New estimate 3 hours. We don't have 3 minutes, I tell him, watching the creatures gather outside the control room. They're not rushing us anymore. They know we're trapped. Hold as long as you can, he orders. The uranium must flow. We all finish with him. The company motto might as well be carved into our bones at this point. The creatures begin their final push. We go hand to hand when the ammunition runs out. Combat knives against crystalline claws. Parker takes down 3 before a lucky strike cracks her faceplate. Scotch covers her retreat, buying time with her life as she seals her suit. That's when I notice something odd about their attack pattern. They're not trying to destroy the reactor controls like they did on the other platforms. They're being careful, almost protective. They want it intact, I realize aloud. They're not just attacking anymore. They're taking over. Parker looks at me, understanding dawning in her eyes. The uranium. They're not just drawn to it, they're... First rule of Frost 7. Scotch reminds us, bleeding but still fighting. Don't ask questions. He's right. Questions don't matter anymore. What matters is that humanity needs this uranium, needs these reactors, and we're the last line of defense. Parker, I say, making a decision. Remember Protocol 0. Her eyes widen. That's crazy. The containment breach would... Better than letting them have it, I cut her off. Better than finding out why they want it. The creatures press closer, their ice-blue forms filling the doorway. They seem to sense what we're planning. Their attacks become more frantic, less coordinated. Do it, Scotch says, understanding in his eyes. Been that way 50 years. Will be that way 50 more. Parker finishes, her fingers flying over the reactor controls. The override sequence is designed to be simple enough to activate even in the middle of combat. The reactor's hum changes pitch, becomes something angry and unstable. All units, fall back to minimum safe distance, I broadcast on all channels. Reactor 2 is going critical. Repeat, Reactor 2 is going critical. The creatures realize their mistake too late. They try to stop us, but Parker's already locked in the sequence. The reactor's failsafes scream as they're bypassed one by one. It's been an honor, Scotch says. taking position by the door. Try not to die too quickly. You too, old friend, I tell him, helping Parker barricade the controls. Even hell. The next few minutes are a blur of combat and warnings. The creatures throw themselves at our position with desperate strength, but we hold. We hold because that's what Trevin Marines do. We hold because the uranium must flow, or in this case, must be denied to the enemy. The reactor goes critical, just as our defenses finally break. The last thing I see is the creatures backing away, their ice-blue forms illuminated by the growing light of atomic fire. Then everything goes white, and the questions don't matter anymore. Been that way 50 years? Will be that way 50 more. Or maybe not. I wake up in medical, which is the first surprise. The second surprise is that I'm alive at all. Welcome back to the land of the living. Rivera's voice comes from somewhere to my left. You've been out for 3 days. My throat feels like I've been gargling ice shards, but I managed to croak out, Parker? Scotch. Parker made it. She's already back on duty. Stubborn kid, Scotch. She trails off and I close my eyes, another name for the list of those the ice has taken. The reactor? I ask, though I already know the answer. The uranium must flow. Contained, Rivera confirms. The emergency systems managed to prevent a full meltdown. Corporate's pleased, says your actions saved billions in equipment. Of course they are. Never mind the lives lost, the sacrifices made. As long as the uranium keeps flowing, corporate stays happy. The creatures pulled back after the reactor incident. They're still out there, watching, learning. But they're not attacking anymore. Not yet. I try to sit up, fighting against the weakness in my limbs. Rivera helps me, her own movements stiff from recent combat. How many did we lose? Too many, she says simply, but we held. The facility is operational, minus a few platforms. Mining operations resumed yesterday, because that's what matters in the end. Not the dead, not the taken, not the questions we're not supposed to ask. Just the endless flow of uranium from this frozen hell to humanity's hungry reactors. Walsh visits later, after I've had time to process everything. He looks older, more worn, but his eyes are still sharp behind his faceplate. Good work out there, he says without preamble. Good work out there, he says, without preamble. Until they learn to counter those too? I respond, but without bitterness. It's just a fact of life on Frost 7. That's not your concern anymore, he tells me. You're being reassigned. Transfer orders came in this morning. That gets my attention. Sir, they're setting up a new facility, Frost 8. Bigger uranium deposits, if you can believe it. They need experienced personnel to get it running. Same enemy. He shrugs. First rule of Frost 7? Don't ask questions, I finish with him. Been that way 50 years. Will be that way 50 more, he confirms. You ship out in a week. Take Parker with you. She's earned it. Guess they found more uranium. Humanity's got to keep the lights on somehow, I respond, removing my own helmet to feel the artificial cold of the facility. You in? She laughs, a sound with actual humor in it. Like I'd let you face another frozen hellhole alone. Someone's got to keep you alive. That's what Scotch used to say, I note quietly. We share a moment of silence for our fallen friend. Somewhere out in the darkness, the creatures watch and wait, learning from every encounter. Maybe they'll follow us to Frost 8. Maybe they're already there. But those are questions we're not supposed to ask. You know what Scotch would say right now? Parker asks, lighting one of his old cigarettes. She's been carrying them since we lost him. This is going to suck. That too. But he'd say we've got a job to do. The uranium must flow. She's right, of course. That's what it always comes down to. The endless cycle of mining and fighting and dying, all to keep humanity's reactors running. The questions don't matter, the cost doesn't matter, only the mission matters. 1 week, I say, watching the smoke freeze in elaborate patterns before dissipating. Think they've got real coffee at Frost 8? Probably not, she replies with a grim smile. But I bet they've got plenty of ice zombies. Wouldn't have it any other way. Outside our reinforced walls, the creatures continue their patient vigil. Maybe they're planning their next attack. Maybe they're still learning from the reactor incident. Maybe they're wondering why we keep coming back to these frozen worlds, keep fighting these endless battles. But those are questions we're not supposed to ask. We just do our job, hold the line, keep the uranium flowing, because that's what Treffin Marines do. Been that way 50 years, will be that way 50 more. And if sometimes, in the quiet moments between battles, we catch ourselves staring into the ice and wondering, well, that's just another secret we keep in this endless frozen night. Keep your helmet sealed, rookie. The words echo across Frost 8's landing pad as I watch another batch of fresh faces stumble off the transport. Their environmental suits are still pristine, unmarked by combat or ice. They stare at the massive mining facility rising before them, just like I did a year ago on Frost 7. Sir, one of them protests, already reaching for his helmet seals. But I saw some of the veterans. You'll earn your helmet breaks, Parker cuts in beside me, her face exposed to the brutal cold. The scars from Frost 7 stand out starkly against her frost-nipped skin. Until then, stay sealed. It's strange being on the other side of this conversation. A year ago, I was the rookie getting these same warnings. Now I'm the veteran with the 1,000-yard stare, watching another generation of Treffin Marines learn the harsh realities of life on a frost world. Movement on the perimeter, Rivera announces over the comm. She transferred with us, saying something about keeping us out of trouble. Looks like our old friends followed us here. Through the swirling ice particles, I can see them, the same translucent blue forms, the same crystalline armor. Maybe they're the same ones from Frost 7. Maybe there's something new. Those are questions we don't ask. All units, combat positions, I order, watching the rookies scramble to their assigned places. Standard response pattern. Let's show these new arrivals how we do things. The creatures emerge from the darkness with familiar grace. They're already probing our defenses, learning our patterns. The cycle begins again. Garcia! Walsh's voice crackles through the comm. He stayed behind on Frost 7, but his final advice still rings in my ears. The uranium must flow. Status report. Holding the lines, sir, I respond, dropping 2 runners with practiced bursts. Teaching the next generation. The battle falls into its familiar rhythm. The rookies spray and pray while the veterans pick their shots. Parker calls out targets with mechanical precision, her voice steady despite the chaos. Rivera coordinates our defense like she's done it 1,000 times before. Maybe she has. Maybe we all have. Sir? One of the rookies, Armstrong, and isn't that a punch to the gut, calls out during a lull. What are these things? Where did they come from? First rule of Frost operations, kid, I tell him, remembering when I asked those same questions. Don't ask questions. Been that way. 50 years, the veterans finish with me. Will be that way 50 more. The mining equipment beneath our feet thrums with its endless rhythm, pulling uranium from this new frozen hell. Different world, same mission. The uranium must flow. Later, in the mess hall, I write a letter home while the rookies compare their first battle stories. Parker sits beside me, her helmet off like always, reading Scotch's old copy of The Art of War. Some of the pages are stained with frost. Dear Dad, I write you asked why I volunteered for another tour. Why I chose to come to Frost 8 after what happened on Frost 7. The truth is, I didn't sign up for this. Any of this. None of us did. But we're here because someone has to be. Someone has to hold the line, keep the uranium flowing, face the endless night. The rookies looking at me now, their eyes still bright with questions. They remind me of myself a year ago. They remind me why we do this. We don't do it for the combat pay. We don't do it for the glory. There's no glory in a frozen hell where your closest friends disappear into the darkness. We do it because humanity needs its uranium, needs its power, needs its light. And if that means we stand guard on these frozen worlds, facing enemies we don't understand and aren't supposed to question, then that's what we'll do. Because we're Treffin Marines, and this is our duty. Tell Mom I'm safe. Tell her the stories about me are exaggerated. Tell her I'm making a difference. But don't tell her about the ice in my dreams, or the blue shadows that move like liquid grace, or the questions we're not supposed to ask. Don't tell her that sometimes, in the quiet moments between battles, I think I understand why they take off their helmets. Because that's not what matters. What matters is that we're here, they're here, and the uranium keeps flowing. Been that way 50 years, will be that way 50 more. Love, Juan. I seal the letter and look up at the reinforced ceiling, knowing that somewhere beyond it the creatures are watching, learning, waiting. They followed us from Frost 7, or maybe they were already here. Another question we're not supposed to ask. Ready for patrol? Parker asks, closing her book. I nod, sealing my helmet. Always. Someone's got to show the rookies how it's done. Think these ones will last longer than our batch did? Better, I say, checking my rifle's charge. I'm getting tired of writing condolence letters. We step out into the eternal night, into the familiar cold that bites even through our suits. The rookies follow, their movements still uncertain, their questions still burning behind their faceplates. The creatures watch from beyond the floodlights, their ice-blue forms shifting like frozen smoke. They're learning us already, adapting to our patterns. The cycle continues. But that's okay. We'll adapt too. We'll hold the line, keep the uranium flowing, train the next generation of Marines to do the same. Because that's what we do. That's who we are. I reach up and unlock my helmet seals, letting the brutal cold hit my face. The rookies gasp, but Parker just nods in understanding. Sometimes you need to feel the battlefield without filters. Sometimes you need to remember what's real. Welcome to Frost 8, I tell the rookies as the darkness shivers with movement. Try not to die. The uranium must flow. Been that way 50 years. Will be that way 50 more. Thank you so much for listening to this story. I hope you enjoyed it a lot. If you did, please be sure to give it a like. Feel free to comment and share this story too. It helps the channel grow. Let's make this channel huge together.